Good morning. For many, 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 many years, you would hear a speaker stand up before an audience and say, "It's so great to be with all of you." And I used to always wonder why they would say that, because our job, doing this as much as we have, is to be with people like you all the time. But after the last 15 months, when I say to you, "It's so great to be with all of you," I'm telling the truth, okay? It is. And I know for all of you folks that run companies, I think we could turn this down just a touch, please. Just turn it down a touch. Thank you. And I know all of you that run companies, you know how both exciting, productive, profitable, incredible productivity, but also challenging this whole thing has been. We're somewhat lucky here in the state of Nevada. On May 1st, they gave us one good news, and that was they could put the tables together. 2 days ago, they had all the tables 6 feet apart. Last week in Florida, they had the tables 6 feet apart. We had 280 people, and without the tables, we could have put probably 1,200 people in the room. So Nevada's yesterday loosened up some of the restrictions. The restaurants are all at 80%. The shows are starting again in a couple of weeks, which is a big thing in this town. So we're excited that the city and the state is moving forward. And I've had a lot of fun with this. People have kept saying to me, "Have you had the vaccine?" I said, "Yes, I had both shots." "Did you get sick?" I said, "No, because I'm healthy." You don't get sick if you're really healthy. And then one guy said to me, "How could you take that vaccine?" I said, "Well, it was easy. I just had him give me a shot." He said, "But you don't even know what's in it." And I said, "Well, have you ever eaten a hot dog?" I mean, for goodness sakes, I don't know and I don't care if you've taken or not taken, and I'm not interested in your opinion because that's such a personal choice. But, I think in most cases, most of this whole thing has been to save the lives of people, and obviously for all of us. And I look around the room, and as you guys and gals can tell, the average age of an agent is 57, 58. Average age of a broker is probably 67 or 68. And, the biggest thing we have to do now is keep making a lot of money and having enough time to enjoy it. So I'm wishing all of you the best of health and best of safety, and most importantly, making a ton of money. This is our second live event. Okay, I see sitting right in front of me. I've got bright lights, so I can't really see you as well as I'd like to. We did a live event 5-6 days ago in Orlando, Florida. We had 280 people. It was our first live event. This is our second live event. Our next one will be in July, and then we're going to schedule Texas and Georgia probably in September and October, and then come back to Southern Florida probably, I would guess at the latest, probably the 1st of October. So we're the only company that is doing live events at this time, and we're excited about, being a trendsetter, because I'm the old-fashioned guy in the industry. So wherever you're located, we're going to try to accommodate you and your agents to the best of our ability. As always, we have a notebook in front of you, which I would always say at a seminar, take a lot of notes. By a show of hands, do we have anybody here that is a former school teacher? Any former school teachers? So I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't see any over here. School teachers know that the learning curve for a student goes up as you take notes. I mean, and I know that if I'm doing a sales retreat, Lee, you saw that last week, that audience probably took 30, 40 pages of notes. I do a management retreat, and I'm hoping somebody takes a note, okay? Everybody say why. Because managers and brokers are smarter than almost everybody else, okay? And I say that tongue-in-cheek, but managers and brokers think of themselves as being brilliant, and I've always said, how can you continue to grow if you have all the answers? I'm convinced, and I said this at the first management retreat, which was in 1986 in Newport Beach, California. I said, the problem in management of real estate is you have all the answers, but you don't know what the questions are. So your answers don't have a lot of meaning. So I'm going to suggest you take a lot of notes because the learning curve improves. And I also wrote down, and it's always a challenge to get you to ask a lot of questions while we're together, okay? Now, supposedly, if I step off the stage, I have to put my mask on, so I can't walk into the audience, which is what I normally would be doing. But if you have a question as we're going through, raise your hands, okay? I forgot to ask them, and we'll do this hopefully at the break. I'm going to ask them to set up 3 microphones in the aisles so you can stand up at a microphone and ask a question. Watch. Nobody is going to think less of you if you ask a question, because we're all in the same boat. We're trying to figure out how to make our organizations more productive and more profitable and run smoother. So nobody's going to say, oh God, I can't believe that person asked a question. Because the reason we don't ask questions is we don't want to look stupid in front of our friends and our associates. But I'd rather be stupid looking and real smart with the answers than be real smart looking with no answers. So ask a lot of questions. And then I also wrote down, which I do at every seminar, laugh a little bit. Folks, we're here. We should be happy, okay? Really simple. The problem is, with this whole COVID thing now going on, so what are we in our 14th or 15th month? All the stories and jokes I used to tell pre-COVID, now they're all politically incorrect. So almost anything I would have said before, Jason, I can't say now, okay? So if you want to hear some good jokes, I'll meet you in the corner, okay, a little bit later. But I always have said this, there's 2 things that relieve high stress. Good sex or bad sex, okay? Because, Johnny Carson said he's never had bad sex, so and I'm a fan of Johnny Carson. But the other thing is laughing a lot, okay? Because it's pretty hard to be upset, mad, and angry if you are laughing. And who would like to have a great laugh right now? Okay, just think about your office inventory. It's a joke, okay? Because most of you have none, okay? And that is, by the way, the goal of a company. And I don't understand why everybody is bitching and moaning, complaining about a lack of inventory, because in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, you bitched about the fact that everything was for sale. So some people aren't happy unless they're mad. Watch, the purpose of having inventory is to get rid of it. That is why organizations have inventory. You don't have inventory to keep it, it's to get rid of it. So, if you really want a good laugh, just think about A, your inventory, and B, the fact that your agents are happy that you're not there. Because then they think they have some run of the show. I'm asked this question a lot, especially the last 3 or 4 weeks. Mike, what is the difference? I'm getting a lot of echo up in front, okay? So if you guys could help me with that. Thank you. What is the difference between all this Zoom type of training, virtual training, and live events? And I wrote the answer. Everything is the difference, okay? Between April 1st of 2020 and December 15th of 2020, I did personally 600 of those 45-minute Zoom events. And, I always had good audiences, Julio, thanks to people like yourself. But it is not the same as what we're doing here today. So one of the questions, and John Joseph and I talked about it a little bit earlier this morning, was, Mike, are you going to talk about trying to get these people to bring their people back into their companies? And the answer is yes. Now, with safety protocols in place, etc. But you see, the biggest problem we've had in the last 12, 14, 16 months is a lack of participation. Now, I know that some of you, and some of you I know very well, have been online, on Zoom, virtually every minute of every day. But it is not the same as being in a conversation with one of your sales team. So I'm going to stress to you throughout the course of today and tomorrow, work hard to get people back into the offices. Follow the restrictions of the city and state, etc., of course. But get people back, because they've been gone so long they've forgotten what their job is. And it's the same 10% of your agents that sell 90% of the homes. And if you don't understand that, figure it out, because it is the same 10% that are selling 90% of the properties. So the only way a business can grow is through participation. So in January, Sabrina and I said, let's pick a word and make it our mantra for 2021. So we talked about that, and we looked at a variety of different words that we could use as a mantra. And I don't know if it was Sabrina or myself. Finally, we said, we got the word, okay? I'd like you to write in capital letters the word participation. The word participation. So, as I always do, whenever I'm not 100% sure of the meaning of a word, I go to Webster's Dictionary. And if you're interested, I'll give you what Webster's Dictionary says the word participation means. And then if you look at this definition, and then you look at the activity level inside your company, you can see the biggest challenge we have today is a lack of participation. So here's what Webster says, and I'll ask you to write it down. To be involved with others in doing something. To be involved with others in doing something. Comma, to be involved with others in doing something. Now, let's be honest. If you had 15, 20 of your sales team together in a room, socially spaced based upon your restrictions, do you think you can get more participation there or having them on a Zoom call? Be honest. Come on, say it. Absolutely. And anybody that doesn't understand that doesn't understand participation, doesn't understand leadership. And I understand, Bobby, being in the state of Florida, what a blessing. The state of Georgia, the state of Texas, okay, where everything is wide open. And I saw yesterday that Los Angeles County actually now is going to 100% for their nightclubs, their bars, their restaurants, etc. That's a big deal, okay? And then I heard somebody make a comment, well, what about the fact that COVID could come back? Everything comes back, because nothing ever goes away, okay? Poor producers never go away. And the good ones that leave almost never come back, okay? So you have to understand, to be involved with others in doing something, comma, to continue to take part. And I want you to continue this definition, to continue to take part in an activity, to continue to take part in an activity or an event with others. So when Sabrina and I picked the word participation for our company motto for Bernie this year, our goal in January, Julio, was when can we get groups together again outside of Zoom? When is that going to happen? And we heard the rumors the middle of February that Florida was going to open up. So we immediately put together an event take place last week, okay, end of April in Orlando. And then we heard a week later that Las Vegas was going to open up May 1st. So we actually picked, I think today's May 2nd, I believe. We picked as quickly, we would have done it yesterday if I thought you guys and gals would have shown up. Okay, watch. To be involved with others in doing something, how about getting them together to continue to take part in an activity or event with others, coaching, training, monitoring, helping, assisting, teaching. That's what our job is, okay? But then I wrote down, Zooming generally eliminates 90% of the participation that is required to build an organization. So, if you bought Zoom stock, probably made some money, congratulations. But it's interesting, Zoom wasn't buying stock in your company. Everybody say why? Because there's a lack of participation. Because even with the Zooming, Bernie, I would say of the 600 plus, not counting what I did this year, I would say we probably averaged about 10% of the agents showing up for any type of Zoom meetings that we put on, which means that most people are not participating. And we'll talk about that more in a few minutes. So we're going to spend a little time this morning looking at what I think are the three biggest challenges in real estate today. And it's not going to be technology, okay? Because it's not a challenge, because every company says they have the best technology. So that eliminates that whole concept. But there are three challenges that, let's see, Neil, we've started working together 46 years ago. Neil Schwartz is my first client and still shows up, which is even more fun, and has become a long-term friend, which makes it even better yet. But we've been talking about the same three challenges for 46 years, so I have a thought. Maybe it's time to solve them. Well, real estate is not a very fast progressing, moving forward business outside of technology. And if you look at people that are in the technology industry, they still think that we're about 80 years behind. But these three problems that I'm going to bring up are solvable problems. So let's write A, B, and C, and we'll write the three problems out, and then we're going to spend some time talking about them. So letter A is low per person productivity. That is the basis of what takes place in real estate today. Low per person productivity. And I do work with brokers, and I ask a broker to help me understand their per person productivity, and it's scary. I actually wonder, how do they stay in business? Then let's write down B, and we'll come back to letter A, B, a low average income per person. The low average income, it's also scary. How many of you are from the state of California? Please raise your hands. We think it's about half the group, okay? I don't think there's any question it's the most beautiful state in the nation, personal opinion only. It's also the toughest state to operate a business in because of the laws, rules, regulations, and politics. It's also one of the most expensive places to have to live. So an agent's making $10,000, $12,000 a year. They're not living a lifestyle, okay? They're living a non-lifestyle. We got to figure out how to increase the income of agents without paying them a higher split. And then third major problem is the turnover among agents. The turnover among agents. It is the highest I have seen in my career taking place from June of last year through today. I've never seen the turnover among agents at a higher pace. And there's no question, this whole COVID thing, it just did not work for most people. And in the first round of the virtual seminars that I did, I talked about the fact that the challenge that brokers face, and I addressed it, and trust me, Neil, nobody wanted to hear what I said. Okay, everybody, I could see the faces clicking off as I was speaking on these little webinars. I said, the biggest problem is you have a single man or single woman as a real estate agent in your company, and they are now confined to their home for 30, 60, 90, 180 days. And they're living in a 1,100 square foot condo with their puppy or their cat, or the challenge, a single real estate lady with 2 or 3 kids, who now their job is to be mom, be the chef, be the housekeeper, be the school teacher, be the principal, just starting, that's the first part, and then try to sell real estate and not be able to leave your home in the process. I said the turnover is just incredible because, I think, and I've said this now for 7 or 8 months, the biggest problem with COVID is not the terrible physical effects it's had on people, it's the horrifying mental effects it's had on people. And that can only be solved through participation. If you're not engaged with your people, the mental side of this COVID thing has been a disaster, okay? All you have to do is watch the behaviors of people today. And it's almost hard to believe. So let's go back to the first one. Per person productivity. I wrote a question. Why is it so low? Why is the per person productivity so low? So I did a little bit of math this morning, and I wrote, okay, so we're anticipating a little over 5 million transactions this year. And there's 2 sides to each transaction, Lee, so that's 10 million checks will be delivered to real estate salespeople. But there's 1.4 million real estate agents, which means if we divide 1.4 million into 10 million, that's 7 transactions per person. Not bad. The highest per person productivity in the U.S., I think it's 16.7, is RE/MAX. It is the highest. And I think the next highest is CB, franchises, and it's like 10.9. Okay? How many are in RE/MAX? Boy, do you have an edge if you take advantage of it, okay? So if you take in your office today and you do, okay, I'm going to project to close this many transactions this year in my company. And then I divide that by my average number of agents that I'll have throughout the course of the year. Are you above or below 7? So let's do the exercise right now. Okay, now for the team leaders, okay, depending on the size of your team, okay, Jason, how many on your team? 6. Is that producers or admin also? Producers. Good. So, do you have to take your production out, which is probably half or more of the total production, and you divide the balance by the 6. Okay. Bernie, same thought. Okay. And John, same thought, because you're starting to build a team. But Julio already has a wonderful company, so we take the total number of agents, projected total number of transactions closed, and then you have a number, and it's either above 7 or below. Here's the problem. We don't want to look at that. Everybody say why? Because it's discouraging. You're looking at a group of, let's say you have 140 agents, and you're doing 650 transactions. That's 4 transactions per person. And 10% of your agents are going to do 80% of the 650. So one of the great lies in real estate is per person productivity. So I'm going to ask a question, and I'd like to get your feedback and yell out your answers. I wrote down this question. Why is PPP so low? And that's a question that I think everybody here, Alex, should put on a big piece of paper. Why is our per person productivity so low? And that should be hung in front of you in your office. And you have to look at it every day and hopefully feel a sense of excitement on doing something about it. And you're also feeling a sense of probably depression because it's so low. Sabrina brought home yesterday this book that I wrote in 1988, How to Develop a Six-Figure Income in Real Estate, okay? This goofy little book sold 120,000 copies between 1988 and probably the year 2000. I mean, it's so outdated, it's almost hard to believe. But in this book, we put together a step-by-step 6-month plan for an agent to follow to be productive. And of course, in 1988, we're trying to get him, Bernie, to $100,000 a year. Now everything we produce for agents is how to get to $1 million a year. And there's a difference, okay? And it's not just the money, it's the lifestyle. So who can tell me, why is the per person productivity so low in your company, your market, your area? Because I know it's not you. Okay? Go ahead, real loud. And I couldn't hear.
Lack of consistency in their behavior.
Okay, lack of consistency. I think let's make a list. Because you have to address this at some point inside your organization, whether it be a team or a company. Lack of consistency / owners and agents. So we have to take responsibility on both sides. That's a good answer. Okay, let me go to John, then I'll come to Alex.
Training and accountability.
All right, let's put a lack of training and a lack of accountability. And those are two totally separate situations. I mean, I get such a kick out of this because, you know, I'm still, Bernie, one of the most criticized people in the industry. And of course, I keep thinking, how can people get mad about common sense? I mean, it's Jesus. I mean, give me a break. You know, I mean, all we teach is common sense. Watch. Talk to people to increase your odds. Boy, is that ever controversial. Oh, geez. Do most of your agents talk to a lot of people? Okay, I'm sorry. I guess there obviously is a microphone problem connecting my words to your head. Okay? But normal management retreat. And that's for the excited ones. Okay? How many are here to get better? How many are here to improve productivity? How many are here to become better leaders? How many are not here yet? Okay? So think about this. A lack of training, or we're still training them on how to fill out a listing contract. We're still training them on how to do a net sheet. They haven't had an appointment in 9 months. They don't need a net sheet. Except for the home they're going to lose, which is their own. Okay? So, a lack of training and lack of accountability. Alex, please.
Broker leadership.
Okay, poor.
Do a good enough job of implementing like a high origin productivity into their culture.
Okay, so poor leadership, which ends up being a poor production culture. That's a great point. Thank you. Hold on one sec, let's get that written down. Poor leadership, which results in a poor culture. And let's face it, keeping a culture alive, Bobby, for the last 14 months has been one of the biggest challenges you have. Now again, Florida has been blessed by being much more open, as has been Texas. But even then, it's still been a challenge, okay? Let me go to Kathy Schweitzer, then I'll come over here. So Kathy, you're going to have to be real loud.
No problem. No recruiting or bad hires.
Okay, why is per person productivity so low? Watch, no recruiting or hiring anything. And that is, gee, there's a new one for us all. Okay? And we're going to talk about recruiting quite a bit because, let's face it, as you've heard me say 1,000 times, recruiting solves every single production problem a company could ever have. Let me go over here first, and I'll come back to Bernie. So whoever had their hand up, I'm going to need a translator. David, listen carefully to what this guy says because even with hearing aids, I can't hear. So over there. Okay, David?
I was going to say bad hiring practices as well, but I'll go a little deeper, not understanding your own vision and hiring people that take away from that vision.
Okay, so bad hiring practices, and then tell me the second half.
Not understanding your own company vision and culture to where you bring people in that will take away from your past.
So bad hiring practice is and not identifying your own company culture or standards or purposes or objectives so you can move the company forward, which results in low per person productivity. That's a great answer, thank you. So before we get to the next one, I'm going to come to Bernie. Anything so far apply to anybody in this room, yes or no? Yes. Come on. Yes. All right, so then the question is not, gee, it applies to me. It's what am I going to do about the problem that applies to me? Bernie, please.
The answer to the question is really more of a question to it. Why do we hire people that we know probably will not be productive?
Okay, so then we go back to the question, why do we hire some of the people we hire? Okay? And I've never understood that, but it's the mirror test. Breathe out condensation, they got a license, they're hired, okay? Which is a disaster. Okay, any other thoughts? Way over here. And of course, the disadvantage of being 76, I can't hear, I can't see, but outside of that, it's almost perfect. It's this young lady back over here. Thank you. And we'll get some microphones set up for you guys in the audience.
Commission checks are too big.
Everybody go, Yahoo! But see, the big commission checks are killing you. But the low per person productivity is because the commission checks are so big. I mean, last week, Lee, who was it that was up in the front of the room? Oh, it was Carlos. He's down in San Diego. His average commission check is $34,000. Now, Julio, think about that one. And he's going to do 65 transactions this year. That's a lot of money, okay? So the average commission checks have gone up because prices have gone up, which means the number of transactions on a per person basis has shrunk. But the agents are living the life. Right over here to Adam. And by the way, sir, thank you for running around. I appreciate it.
Mike, we spend way too much time on unproductive activities.
We spend too much time on non-productive activities. Boy, that is probably as big an issue on per person productivity as anything. Brokers and managers, sir, I've got a hand over here. Brokers and managers spend too much time on non-productive activities. And before we go any further with that, then I would write down what are those activities. Because what I told the agents last week is 75% of your workday should lead to a listing contract or a buyer-controlled sale. And 25% should be taken care of. Your existing business. Please.
Lack of leadership to take ownership of the problem.
So let's write down, excellent answer, lack of leadership taking ownership of the problem. So I've shared that, I'll come to you in a minute. I've shared this with some of you way back in the 80s and early 90s. The broker I worked for in Huntington Beach had 3 little offices. And a big office in those days was 25 agents. Today, an office with 25 agents doesn't even count, okay? So the managers of the 3 offices were the 3 top producers in the company, which was the old style of leadership. I was the top producer in Springdale office, so I was then the sales manager. So I said to Pat McVeigh, how do I get paid as a sales manager? He said, I'm going to give you 10% of the company profit. I said, well, how much money does the company make on an average month? He said, we lose about $2,000 a month. I said, do I have to pay you 10% of the $2,000? No. And I was kidding, and he wasn't, okay? So I asked for the books for the branch. And Bernie, I mean, I think there were 14 or 16 people. I was doing 80% of the production, and I think it was Klepping, and Bob Hollowell and Maggie Woodward were doing the balance. So what I did the next Tuesday is I fired out of the 13 salespeople, 10 of them. In fact, I went to the grocery store next door and I got 10 boxes, packing boxes. I took a felt tip pen, wrote their name on the back of the boxes in big letters, put them outside the back door, and then I called a company sales meeting, and the 3 that were producing, I asked them to go wait someplace else. I want to talk to these 10. And then I just fired all 10 on the spot. I just said, you're fired, pick up your stuff. There's a box in the back with your name on it. You're going to be out of here in an hour. Which brought our per person productivity right up. Okay? And for the first time, we made a profit, and I got 10%. Okay? I'm not suggesting that. However, do you have anybody in the company that is non-productive, yes or no? Yes. Real loud. Yes. Why are they there? Neil, Joe, some of my people that I think the world of. Okay. Why are they there? I had this conversation with Chris on a regular basis. Okay. Why do you have them? I mean, really, now let's be real honest. I mean, if you did an honest look, why are they there? Well, they've only been there 7 months. 7 months without a paycheck? I think where's Craig Tan? Someplace in the room, over here. A longtime client, but newer to coaching with us. And Craig, I think there's about 16,000 agents in the city of Las Vegas. Pretty close. Maybe 17 or 18,000. Okay, it's a lot of agents. And I'm guesstimating that last year more than 50% did not do a single deal.
Correct.
Well, then if you look at the NAR stats, 51% of the NAR stats, Bernie, I mean, out of 1.4 million, 51% did not take a listing or make a sale. How do you do that? But how do you allow that? I mean, what is going on inside your head? Well, it's body count. We're not all KW. Oh, don't boo the truth. You boo the bullshit that goes on in the industry regarding numbers. Because that's the truth, okay? For goodness sakes. And I coach a couple of the biggest KW brokers in the nation, and they understand what I'm talking about. But it's no different in C21 or CB or, the EXP. We have 51,000 agents, and we're in 47 countries with one agent in each country. They have like 2 agents in China. Let's see, about 3 billion people in China, they have 2 agents. Their impact it isn't, okay? Is there anything on this list of why your per person productivity is so low that applies directly to you and your organization, yes or no? Yes. I know we have 5 or 6 of our coaches here. Could I ask them to stand up, please? I can't see them because this light is so bright. Okay. So I have to block the light. So I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So first of all, thank you. Okay, we appreciate you a lot for what you guys and gals have been trying to do with this group. Okay. But I am going to ask these coaches, starting this week on coaching calls with any of you, to address this first one and say, what is it on that list that was put together that is getting in your way? So I'm creating some accountability between myself, my wife Sabrina, Tony Smith, who's in the room someplace, I don't know where Tony's sitting, and our 6 coaches. So I can see Kathy and Sydney right in front of me. Your hands are full. They're not handcuffed, they're full of what you have to do with these people. So now I'm going to thank you for standing up, and thanks for being with us today. I appreciate it a lot. So now the question I want you to write down underneath these thoughts on why per-person productivity is so low is to write down, what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do about it? Because the only thing that counts from today forward is the action we take. Last week in Orlando, I shared something that happened to me with Earl Nightingale. And I know I've referred to him a lot because he was one of my mentors. And from 1966 to 1970, I worked in Chicago in the headquarters for Nightingale Kona Corporation. And I got to see Earl almost every day. A couple of years ago in our home in Naples, Florida, Earl's widow contacted us, wonderful lady, and I asked her why she had contacted me. She said, well, you're one of the few people that is still alive that actually got to talk to Earl Nightingale all the time besides me as his widow. So we had a wonderful couple days together. But it was interesting because I asked Earl Nightingale, because he is considered by many to be the dean or the founder of the motivational industry we know today. And if you listen to all the great motivational speakers, Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, all these great speakers, everything comes right out of one message called The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. All their messages originate out of that one. I asked Earl Nightingale a question because we're sitting in his office, and he was very kind to me because I was very young and very dumb, and I asked a lot of questions which he liked, okay? So Bernie, never stop asking questions. Okay, it's the only way we can grow and learn. So I said to Earl Nightingale, what is the definition of the word motivation? And I'll never forget his response. You want the dictionary definition or mine? I said, well, are they different? He said, night and day. I said, well, the company's name is Earl Nightingale Communications, so I'm going to go with yours instead of the dictionary. He said, good, take a pencil and write this down. I said, okay. So he said, write down the word motivation, M-O-T-I-V-A-T-I-O-N. And then he said, I want you to think about this, Mike. Motivation is a motive, a goal, an objective, a plan, a desire, an outcome, to action. And I remember looking at it and saying, well, I'm not 100% sure what that means. He said, Mike, if this individual does not have a goal they're trying to accomplish, they have nothing to cause them to take action. Or if the goal is so low, no action is required, they don't go anywhere. So therefore, he said, our job at Earl Nightingale Communications is to help people select a goal so we can help them write a plan to take action. Hello, sound like it might be the job of a broker, manager, team leader, yes or no? Because that really is what the leadership side of this whole thing is all about. And that is the solution to per-person productivity. So which of these are you going to take action on? And if you're in our coaching, which by tomorrow, if every one of you are not involved in our coaching, shame on you. And I say that not to promote my coaching, but I say it because shame on you. Period. Because you've already figured out you can't change your per-person productivity on your own. Okay? I wrote a letter to NAR 25 years ago, and I said, I have a great idea. And I said, I think everybody that gets their license should have to, by law, go through 5 days of sales training with Mike Ferry. I thought it was a good idea, okay? Well, folks, our per-person productivity of our agents is 10 times higher than anybody else's, okay? I mean, again, my brokers and friends in RE/MAX, they average like 16.7. Our coaching clients are like 52, okay? So don't tell me it doesn't work, okay? So if you are sitting here for 2 days and you decide not to become part of what we do, shame on you, because it affects your per person productivity. So I said to Earl, how do we help them set goals? He said, ask them what they want. I said, okay, what do they want? He said, they want recognition, security, and money, in that order. They want recognition, security, and money in that order. And I said, well, you mean they want recognition before they want money? He said, absolutely. No question about it. So there is a solution to the per person productivity, but it starts with us having a goal to be honest as to what it really is, and then creating a step-by-step plan to change that. And I have to tell you, when Sabrina brought this book home from storage yesterday, first of all, the picture on the front, I don't even know who that guy is, okay, because I think I was 30 when the picture was taken, okay? But then I looked at the book, and David, you read it because you and I, we go way back, probably 30 some years now. And, you know, if you look at the book, the plan I put together, I certainly wouldn't recommend today. But if you don't have a plan step by step to improve per person productivity, do you think it's going to change, yes or no? Come on, say it. Now, you hire somebody that really has a fire lit within themselves. And everybody has one or two of those, or maybe a few. And they take off like a rocket ship, and then you take pride in the fact that you made a good hire. Wait a minute, they were going to go to work for somebody in real estate. Maybe you just got lucky, and they caught on with you. Because those in real estate that really take off and do a good job, and I tell this to our coaches all the time, the great agents are going to be great whether they are in coaching with MFO or not. They're going to be great. All we can do is help refine that and maybe make it a little bit smoother and a little bit easier. So where is my microphone man? Because I have a hand up over here. And you know what? Don't run. Yeah, don't. I don't want to be responsible for you tripping and then me being sued. Okay. I have not done an event in Las Vegas in the last 20 years where I don't get sued by one participant after the event. So, hand up over here. Question or comment? Question.
Hey, Mike, actually, I had this question to ask you later, and since you mentioned it right now about, you know, sometimes you just get lucky getting some motivated agents, right, that they want to really make it big. And back to what we were talking about, you know, sometimes making a bad hire or hiring the right person. How do you know from the get-go? And, you know, all we learned from you, it's a numbers game, and, you know, try to get as many, you know, whether listings or agents in this case that you can. So I'm a little just confused on, like, do we hire every agent we can and then figure out the ones that are going to do something or not? Or how do you go about the process?
Well, we're going to go through that recruiting process later this afternoon and partially tomorrow morning to answer that question specifically. But the one nice part about real estate, somebody walks in the door, I don't think there's anybody in this room that is qualified to look at them without speaking and decide they're going to be good. I mean, I don't think that's possible. Because if you look at some of the agents that are really good, you go, you got to be kidding, okay? You wonder how they've ever done it. So that physical look is important, but it's not the answer. So therefore, the only way you can really find out and dig deep about what is their motivation is to ask them a lot of questions. And most of us don't. They walk in and we start talking and bragging about ourselves and our company and how great we are and we're the best ever and nobody's ever done as good a job and we've been in business for 2,715 years and we're just getting started and we know everything and there's nothing that you can learn that I can't teach you. And they're sitting with their head back, eyes closed, because that's a normal recruiting presentation. So the truth is, the answer is the ability to ask a lot of questions, and even then, we make mistakes, because some people are really good at the interview, but then it's the application and showing them, you know, in your first 8 weeks, this is the training you're going to receive, and then to say what type of training have you already had, so you can match up what they had with what you're going to give, and see where their weaknesses are, and then specialize in that in training them. And then are you willing to let me hold you accountable to not only the training, but what you have to do each day, because you're going to give them an activities list each day to be involved in. And some of you are saying, let's go to the next point. Because now this sounds like work. And, you know, the last 14 months, the work ethic has slipped in our industry by probably 90%, okay? You know what, hold on, the microphone's coming. So, yeah, recognition is the number one motivator of people, security is number 2, and money is number 3. And then there's 10 more down the line after that. So let's look at the second biggest challenge in real estate, low average income. A low average income. Now, let's face it, there's some parts of the country where if you're making $50,000 a year, you can live a comfortable life. And one of those places is Las Vegas, Nevada. Up until the surge, which took place between June, July of last year and today, you know, our average sales price, Craig, was what, probably $270? And for $270, you could get a nice home, Jason, here in the Las Vegas area. I mean, you get a, you know, 1,700 square foot, probably a 2-story, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, you know, new construction, nice property. Now they're probably $375 to $400 because of the surge. Our population has, you know, thankfully for all of you Californians, driving all those people out, which you've done so well, it's helped Nevada a lot. But the problem that you're facing with low average income is the not looking at your top 10% who control the majority of all the income in your company. And if you don't look at that carefully, you know, you buy into the fact that, you know, we're going to do $2 million in GCI or 4 million or 8 million or 3 million or 20 million, whatever that number is. And if you don't look at that number carefully and you don't leave that top 10% out, you know, in Nevada, specifically Vegas, if you make $50,000, $60,000 a year, you can live comfortably. How well do you live in LA, Neil, on $50,000 a year? In a tent, okay? And that's the challenge. So I wrote down this question: how do we increase the average income without increasing their commission? Because that's the challenge. How do we increase their average income without increasing their average commission? So let's say they're on a 65% split. One way to get them a higher average income is pay them 75. But remember, a real estate office is like the government. The government cannot give money away unless they take it away from somebody else. And in a real estate office, you are the somebody else. You can't pay them more unless you take it out of your own pocket and your potential earnings. It's nothing to sneeze at. This is an important point. Okay. He actually just threw up right on the table when I brought this up. Okay. Very common, very common. Okay. So how do we increase the average income? Let's look at some ideas. Okay, Randy?
Teach them how to do money-producing activities.
Say it again.
Teach them how to do money-producing activities.
All right, so he's making it a very general statement. I got it. But it's also a good statement. Teach them income-producing activities. So let's write that thought down. Teach them income-producing activities. But there's a big problem with what Randy said that I've been talking about for 46 and a half years. 95%, today it's probably 98% of all the agents coming into real estate have no sales experience. See, that's the problem. And that goes back to the question you brought up about how do we know? So who's going into real estate today? People that were laid off, furloughed from their jobs because of COVID. So now we have every type of person known to mankind coming into real estate. And Randy, now let's be honest. How many agents do you have today? 82. 182. I should know that. I'm your coach. I know. I didn't say I was a good coach. I just said I'm your coach. Okay? But I know what your GCI is. That's more important, which is your income. So watch this. Of your 182, I'll make a side bet with you that if we asked every person to honestly give us their background, you don't have 20 people that have a direct sales experience background in your company. I bet we don't have 20. Okay? So now here's my question for Randy's answer. Teach them income producing activities. If the average age of an agent, let's say in your company it's only 45, but it's higher because the national average is 58 now of an agent. And they don't have any direct sales experience or any sales experience. And you're going to teach them income producing activities. How easy is that going to be? What do you think? Come on, say it out loud. It's difficult. And can you do it in 2 weeks? Come on, say it. Can you do it in 2 months? Everybody say, how come? Because you're trying to get a person to change their behavior, which is what leadership is all about. And trying to get a person to change their behavior, holy smoly. Well, think about this. I think we have maybe 10 people that I've never had in a seminar prior to today. And 95% of you are long-term clients, and we're thrilled that you're here. Have we asked you in the past to change any of your behaviors, yes or no? Yes. Has it been easy? No. But can you expect production to change without the economy getting better, without changing your behavior, yes or no? No. So you see the dilemma, Randy, with what you said? Okay, I'm going to teach them income-producing activities. So that would start with building a database. That's where it starts, building a database. I mean, even in this book I wrote in 1988, it says the first thing you got to do is build your database. We called it your center of influence file. They don't have any past clients if they're brand new in real estate, so friends and family, neighbors. Well, I want to talk to them, it's embarrassing. Oh, okay, so now the most fundamental part of these income-producing activities they're not going to participate in. What kind of a chance do they have? So now you're selling them on why they should build a database. So they come to you a week later. I've got 13 names. How long have you lived in the community? 31 years. And you only know 13 people? What, have you been living in a hole the whole time? I mean, see, it doesn't even make sense. So I appreciate what Randy said, but the specifics of that are the hard part because it's changing a person's behavior. And as I tell the coaches, Sid, you've heard me say this 1,000 times, we're not psychiatrists, we're not marriage counselors, we're not, psychologists. We can't give you advice on whether you should get divorced or not, because who gives a shit if you get divorced or not, because I don't, okay? Well, our job is to help an agent or a broker be more productive. Isn't that your job, yes or no? Yes. Okay, so how do we change the low average income. Let's see. I got a hand up over here. I think it's John Joseph. It's microphone's on its way. Thank you. Please.
Raise their average sales price.
Okay, raise their average sales price. That's a great idea. Thank you. But there are certain parts of the country where the average sales prices are so low that even if you raise them, it's going up $4,000, you know. But you could take Karen Bernardi, who made that commitment 7-8 years ago, to not take a listing under any circumstance under $400,000. And now our average sales price went from like $450,000 over 7 years to about $1.5 million. And she's doing the same number of deals. Lucy had a comment. Please, Lucy.
Accountability on their leads.
Say it again.
Accountability on what they do with their leads.
Okay, so let's write down to increase the average income, stronger accountability on what they do with their leads. That's a great thought. Thank you. Okay, stronger accountability. Now you're going to say, do I have a right to ask them what they're doing with their leads? So I'm going to ask one person a question, and I already know what his answer is going to be, so say it out loud. Bernie, do you have a right to hold them accountable to what happens with the leads? Can't hear you. Watch, as long as I'm providing the leads, I can hold them accountable to it. But then when you say, well, I don't provide the leads, well, they come under the form and shape of your company, so there is an attachment you have to leads, whether you provide it, they provide it, or somebody trips and falls in the front door. Because they all have a stack of leads that they don't call because they're shuffling through the leads to decide which one may or may not do something this year. So my broker had a solution, and I'll come back to you guys with your hands up in a second. Once a week, he would ask us to take all of our leads, put them on 3x5 cards, put buyer or seller in the corner. Sometimes you wrote B and S because that's what they were in terms of quality. And then we would, and then we would take our best 2 or 3 out, put them in our pocket, and he would take all of our leads and put them in a big fish bowl. And then he'd mix them all up, and then he would redistribute those leads to all of us. Then we all had new leads. Because we'll call new leads, we won't call the old ones. So I think, Lucy, that's one way to increase the income is to be stronger in the accountability in their lead follow-up. Please, Michael.
We're hiring business people, and so we should demand and require them to go through our business planning, and the people that have done that, their PPP has gone through the roof.
Okay, so as business people, we should take them through a business planning process. And whether you call it goal setting or whatever you choose to call it, I agree. If I want to increase the income, let's show them what running an individual agent's business actually is. And then show them the steps, okay, in making that happen. So there's a hand right here, and there's a hand in the corner, so we'll go to this young lady first. Hold on, you have to wait till the microphone gets there. Don't wait, it's not going to bite you. Don't wave at it.
What do I do with it? You'd mentioned that recognition.
Okay, the microphone has to go here.
Recognition and security were key, and that you had placed that above money. In our team, in our situation, there's a tremendous amount of accountability. What if you could tie the compensation somehow back into the recognition security piece where they could take part ownership, maybe shares? I don't know.
Tell me what you mean.
What I mean is if recognition and security are key and we have business people that we're working with, everyone's accountable. They have their
stop.
Business
We don't have business people. No, keep the microphone. We don't have business people working with.
I feel like I should start singing when I have this. So,
no, only one of us is getting paid.
If you can.
And you're not the one.
Yeah,
okay.
no. But tying the.
What do you work for my son Tom or something? You know,
no, God no.
Spy.
No. I think there's a missing piece, an opportunity there in the recognition piece outside of the awards. I do.
Well, I'm not arguing with you.
And I'm wondering why we never talk about that piece.
Talk about,
the recognition and
well,
security.
because we haven't got to that part of my
All
notes.
right, cool.
It's a big part of the retention, which we're going to talk about, is that exact issue. So thank you for thinking ahead. I appreciate that. Let's go over here first.
Hi, Mike. I think going back to PPP, and it also includes how to increase the
Okay, you have to
average.
talk to the microphone, not to the...
I think going back to PPP and increasing income, because in today's market, the inventory is so low, the majority of the agents out there are buyer's agents.
95%.
And so we have to teach them how to become listing agents.
So let's write down a big aha. Thank you. To increase the average income, teach them how to list property. Because really, so few today list property. So I'll look at my friend Jason Penrose. What percentage of your transactions come from listings sold? Yeah, 100%. I'll turn to my friend Lee Marcus out of Chicago. How many listings will you personally take this year? 285 residential. Okay. And even in Chicago, which is unfortunately still a pretty restricted area, your sell ratio is pretty high. Okay. Well, if you look at a company and you got Jason or you got Lee working in that company, what they're doing is the major portion of all the listings, and they know how to make that happen, and I know who trained them on how to make that happen. So it's a transferable device, learning how to list property. So that answer was great. Please.
We got to create a think big environment.
Say it again.
We got to create a think big environment.
Okay, so here's one way to increase average income. Create a think big environment. And because as we've talked in the past, I believe that thinking big is a learned process. Some people are blessed with it. Some people have it in their DNA when they're born. But for 90% of us, thinking big is just learning a different way of looking at things, people, situations, till you can expand and grow. It's a great point. Other hand was up here.
It was similar thought, but the way I wrote it was show them a bigger life that requires they have more income.
Show them a bigger life that
requires that they have more income.
That requires they have more input, which goes back to what you were saying. Because there's many ways to maneuver around this, but if you're not willing to look at them, you can't maneuver around it. So on the lower average income, could we find ways on this list of ideas we've written down to help a person increase their income, yes or no? Yes. And doesn't the increased income per person also have a possible side effect, increasing per person productivity? Yes. Come on. So now we'll go to major problem number 3, the turnover among agents. There's a company in the southern part of the country that's a big, big independent. And I saw a little report said, because they operate down where you live in Little Rock, and the report said that 87% of the new licensees fail within 6 months in their company. And they have thousands of agents. 87%. Okay, I have a lot of conversations with Mike and Dave about this, okay, all the time. Because trying to get that person to change their behavior, and then in this ultra competitive market we're involved in today. So do you go on to hear the good news or the bad news? Come on. All right, if we have 5 million transactions where somebody buys a property, don't we have to have 5 million listings? Hello? Yes. Is it really an inventory shortage, or is everything selling fast? No, yeah, well, there is less listings available that would be sitting and then be coming for Vulcan, an expired listing. So our expired numbers are down here, okay? And yes, in some markets there's 30% less listings, some 50%, but those are generally the ones that never sell anyhow, so what difference does it make? But the problem with this low inventory is this percentage of the people are taking all those listings, where it used to be this percentage were taking listings. So the constant continuous turnover is because they can't take listings. I mean, that's really what it is, because they don't know how to sell well enough to be one of 20, 30 offers on a property. And as Jean and I were talking this morning, she and her team know how to win on the presentation of an offer because they're salespeople. You really should accept ours because the buyer just loved your house. That'll work. Said no seller ever. Okay? So, question I want you to write down. How do we stop the turnover? How do we stop the turnover? So obviously, one answer, and I'll give it first. Get rid of the non-producers. Don't let them decide. Make the decision to clean the house. And that's the hard one, because our egos get so attached to that number of agents that we have in our company. And I have to tell you, I just don't understand it, never have understood it. So how do we stop the turnover? So there was a hand over here first for our, real loud.
Have some sort of weekly or bi-weekly coaching session with your agents.
Okay, so Alex said, thank you, Alex, weekly or bi-weekly coaching sessions with agents. And I support that 100%. And I'm the only speaker that supports teaching the brokers how to do the coaching so we don't have to do it for you, because some of your people we don't want to talk to every week, no matter how much they pay us, okay? But you have an obligation to talk to them every week because they work, bless you, they work inside your company. So you have to learn how to coach. So let's just write down coaching ... And then I'm going to give you 3 or 4 questions that you can use to start this process. Or if you have the process in play, maybe make the process a little better. Okay? And I got these from Dr. Gunther Klaus, one of my mentors back in the 70s, when I started doing this, what I didn't even know was called coaching for the people inside the company that Pat had me managing back in Huntington Beach. So the first question on every coaching session should be, what was your production for the last blank days? What was your production? You already know the answer, but you want to know if they know the answer. So I would start with, Murray, what was your production for the last 7 days? Well, it was a tough 7 days. I didn't make any listings or any sales. Or I had 2 listings, I'm so excited. Or I finally got that buyer to write an offer. Okay. Then number 2, how many good leads do you have at this time? And how often are you talking to them? How many good leads do you have at this time? And how often are you talking to them? Because as one of you stated, it was Lucy, doesn't matter how much conversations they have with people, if they don't do lead follow-up, they're not going anywhere. Then number 3 was the good question that I used to enjoy watching the response. What did you do last week that was really good or really poor? What did you do last week that was really good or really poor? And as you can see, Jason, even with a small team of 6, you're going to spend 15 minutes once a week, either you or your sales manager, going through this process. So what did you do, good or bad? And I'll never forget this. Bob Hollowell was an agent that worked in the company, and he was a former engineer at McDonnell Douglas in Huntington Beach, and he wore the little short sleeve white shirts, that came to here, and the little clip-on tie, and his pants were too short, and he wore the white socks, and he brought a lunch bucket to work. This was 1970. And I'll never forget saying to Bob, what'd you do, good or bad, last week? And he goes, Mike, first time in my life, I finally stopped at a for sale by owner. And I said, Bob, I am so proud of you. Congratulations. How did it go? Not well, they weren't home. But he thought that was good that he finally stopped. So I said, good. So when are you going back? Okay, hold on one sec. And then the fourth question, what can I do to assist you? What can I do to assist you? So John, as you start building a team, I'm going to assume that this responsibility of doing this type of coaching, which is usually no more than a 10 or 15 minute session, and I believe it should be done every week versus every other week, okay? You'll probably be the one between you and Rhea responsible for these. But then I saw a hand go up real loud, because they can't get you to you fast enough. Go ahead.
I can talk pretty loud. Regarding item number B, active leads. How far into the weeds should I get with them? And can I get too involved in their activities over the last couple weeks?
Okay, how involved should I be in the activities, for example, lead follow-up?
Like the specific leads, their names, what activities they're doing, getting into the weeds.
All right, so the question that I would ask if I was coaching you, before we answer the question, is how many agents do you have, and how many are you going to be coaching in this type of environment? So I have 5 agents, I'm going to coach them all. Get involved! Anybody hear the answer? But if you're responsible for 120 agents, that's impossible to get that deeply involved. In fact, then you'll probably be coaching 20 or 30 of them out of the 120, and then every 3 to 4 months, Kathy, which we did with you guys up in Massachusetts, then we switch and those people out, bring a new group in, okay? Because everybody should have the opportunity for your good advice. But if the person is struggling, and I mean struggling, and they say, I have 3 leads, okay, so we're going to be done in a minute. Let's go to your desk, call them, and I want to listen to what you say. Okay? See, the best training, which is never done in real estate, is called field training. And it's never done. And it's pathetic that we don't do it. Because every other industry, there is field training involved. Okay? So there's a hand back here, and then I'll come over here.
So I know you mentioned that recognition and security is a big factor. So say the group is staying consistent with it, they're doing really well with the leads, haven't got a solid, but what examples can you give us besides taking them to lunch or giving them little gift cards or whatnot that you can give us that would be a form of recognition for being consistent and staying on top of it?
Well, this particular point of doing this little weekly coaching is probably one of the highest forms of recognition, okay? But then the oldest fashion, thank you, the oldest fashion of recognition is in today's language, because everybody is so technology, a little attaboy by text, a little attaboy by email, a little voicemail. And, my friend Brian Schmidt, who's sitting over here on my left, along with 25-year client and friend, which, he has 0 turnover in his company. He had one last year, and it was like a shock that he had one agent leave. But I'll repeat some of those things that Brian does to create that security and recognition. But it's just the conversation. How have you been? What's going on? Everything okay? Is there anybody I can be helping you with? See, that's the ultimate retention tool, which is paying attention to people. But see, that's why you can't do it on Zoom. I mean, if I told you and Tony Smith told you some of the war stories of the people that we saw on these Zoom calls, I mean, it's horrifying. 11 o'clock in the morning doing a Zoom call, and the broker wants to put up pictures of 50 people on the screen, and I go, no, I don't want to see that. And they're in their pajamas and laying in bed, and eating a bowl of cereal with their hat on backwards. I mean, and these are your sales team. Get it over with. So there's other things we can do, which we'll come back to. So let's pay attention to this last thought, because it is the critical thought, I believe. Did you ever have to attend organized practice of any type when you played that sport, yes or no? Yes. And if you didn't show up, did you get to participate in the team activities, yes or no? So why is it then different in what you're doing with your company? See, either they participate. Now, this is called a sales presentation that you have to make. So you have to sit down and sell them on their participation because they don't have a sales or business background. And then you can make standards to make this even stronger, which we'll talk about again this morning a little bit later. So with these breaks today, they're totally different, okay? Yesterday, they told us that they had to serve you individually the coffee or the drinks for the break. Then the restrictions were lifted yesterday. So now they have stanchions up, and we have to, like prisoners, go through a line with a little plate and to get our drinks, okay? And, I can't control that you're not going to pay attention to what they ask, but, probably pay attention to what they ask. They are going to ask you to put your mask back on, to stand up and go back to the restrooms that are outside, to go to the break area. Go back to Vulcan 7 because, we're very close with that company and have been for years. And if you're not part of it, go talk to them. Sabrina, who's going to be standing at our table in the back? Okay, my beautiful wife Sabrina and I think Tony Smith. If you are not involved in coaching with us, I want you to listen. If you choose to get involved in coaching with us between today and tomorrow, and you sign a contract with us, we're going to give you your 12th month at no charge. So we're putting a little incentive, anybody to join our coaching. Well, Mike, what about those of us that are in coaching? Let me see the hands of those in our coaching now. Raise your hands real high. Okay? So we know who you are. Your 6th month from today is going to be at no charge. Okay? Fair enough? So, you need to look in the back of your workbook at our coaching. And for 90% of you, you should be involved in our Premier Coaching. Okay? Because it's the best coaching in the industry by far. We started the coaching industry 32 years ago. When we started the coaching. Today, there's 600 plus coaching companies in the United States, of which I think probably all but one or two at one point were coaches for us or were clients of ours. So everybody has taken and copied the original. So I have a very simple thought for you. Do you want to be with the best or one of the rest? Okay, it's really not complicated, okay? So the break is set up there and there. Vulcan is there. Sabrina and Tony are back there, and we'll see you back here in 20 minutes. Thank you for a great first start.